Hi, this is Kelly Tolman, and welcome to Literature Discussions. In this episode, I want to introduce The Lord of the Flies. Before we get into the book, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the book and its context and sort of set the expectations for this series. This series is designed to work as a companion to the book, to go along with reading it. As a literature instructor, I find myself in the awkward position of helping people read a book, but really that isn't the correct expression. What I really do is facilitate discussion about the book and ask a lot of questions to get people thinking. So that is what I'm going to do here. Unfortunately, there's no way for you to respond, so I will be giving a few more of my own opinions than I normally do in a classroom, but only a few. You should expect a few spoilers in these talks because I expect you to have read the book or to be about to read it. But don't try to replace actually reading the book with just listening to me. Keep in mind that I'm just one guy in a world with several billion different opinions. I'm happy if you or your professor or anyone disagrees with me. My goal is to help you form your own opinions and ideas about The Lord of the Flies, not to get you to memorize my ideas. And just as I encourage you to disagree with my ideas, I also encourage you to disagree with yourself from time to time. With that in mind, I have a couple of approaches I like to take when I tackle a text. I like to mix and match between a historical social approach and a more formalist approach. This means that I like to look at what the author is doing and how he is doing it, but then go on to ask the question of why. The answer to the why question could have to do with an effect he is trying to create on a reader, or it could go in a totally different direction, such as the social influences that prompted his reaction. In other words, I'm pretty open to a variety of interpretations and methods for reaching those interpretations. What is important is that you find something in the book that interests you, and then you begin to understand why it interests you and explore it further. So let's talk about Lord of the Flies. This text was first published in 1954 and has been republished numerous times. One of the reasons for its tremendous popularity, like most books in my series, is that it was picked up by many literature professors and teachers and has become required reading for many classes. The book won the Nobel Prize for Literature, which also helps its reputation significantly. Lord of the Flies falls into the category of literary success, meaning that people in academics have found it to be important, useful, or to illustrate interesting concepts. A book like this wasn't really written with the intention of mass appeal, like many blockbuster movies. I find that among my students, it is rarely their favorite read in the course, and it is rarely their least favorite. Most students find some things in it to like, and some things in it that aren't as appealing. The author, William Golding, a psychologist, says that he wrote it as a sort of psychological thought experiment. It is rare that the author will come out and tell us his intentions, but even if he does, we need to be a little skeptical for a few reasons. First, even if the author intended something, that doesn't mean that he was successful. Second, we can never be 100% sure that the author is completely honest about his intentions, though I doubt Mr. Golding was lying. Finally, and most importantly, as a reader, you bring your own background and intentions to the table. This means that each of us will receive the book differently, connect to it differently. So whatever the author intended may not apply in your situation because you don't have the same or perhaps even a similar background to what he did. This final concept is really important, especially when you are reading a book that is so far removed in time from yourself. I am recording this nearly 70 years after the book was first published, and a lot has changed culturally since then. This means that while the core concepts of the book remain relevant, there will be aspects of it that are harder to relate to, or which take on new meaning in a new context. This is okay. By understanding what you as a reader bring to the table, you will find the story even more compelling. So, what kind of a psychological thought experiment is Lord of the Flies? At its core, it is an exploration of the nature of human beings. It explores the concepts of good and evil and the basic desires that motivate us. It explores the meaning of civilization. What does it mean to be civilized, and how might people have been before civilization? Over the course of the story, I hope that you can determine the author's message about these topics. I don't expect you to agree with everything that he has to say. I certainly don't. But I do expect you to understand what he is saying and understand why you agree or disagree. Also, it is important to remember that it is okay to change your mind as you read the story. You can disagree with the author about one thing and then change your mind and agree with him later, or vice versa. You already bring some ideas about good and evil, right and wrong, civilization and uncivilization to the table. Feel free to explore these concepts, to expand them, change them, mold them. Let the author influence you, and also feel free to argue with him. That is a big part of what makes reading a book like this so enjoyable. So, some spoilers, but hopefully spoilers that will help without ruining the book. Lord of the Flies is a sort of a parody of the Lost Island genre, where a group of people are stranded on a desert island and have to find a way to survive through grit and teamwork. The plane carrying a group of boys, refugees from a great world war, have crashed on an island somewhere distant from everyone, and they need to survive. The exact location and exact year are unimportant to the author's intentions. In addition, he intentionally avoided including any female characters. William Golding openly admitted that he didn't want sex to complicate his thought experiment. Throughout the story, we get to watch as they struggle to survive and be rescued. In a classroom situation, I would ask you to take a minute to write out your definitions of civilization, good, evil, and adulthood. I encourage you to take a moment to think about these concepts before starting the book. I would also encourage you to think about what your first priorities might be if you found yourself stranded on an island. What would you do first, and why? Would it be food, shelter? Thank you for tuning in to Literature Discussions with Kelly Tolman, and be sure to check out all of my video and audio content at literaturediscussions.com.